Hello boys and girls, it's me again after a short break. I hope you are refreshed and ready for the next part. Here we are once again, 2014 DSE paper 1 reading, and we are up to part B2 right now, section B2. Now, as an introduction, I'd like to say a few words in dealing with this particular article. And this is text 4, an excerpt from the autobiography of Stephen Fry, a well-loved British actor, writer and comedian. So it's quite a long passage, and it's, I believe, taken from the Telegraph, some local British local newspaper. And now the introduction I'd like to give is, in dealing this particular paper, is that it's a very, very, very challenging text in terms of the vocabulary used here, the sentence pattern, because it's taken from the writer himself, Stephen Fry, and he's a very, very popular writer. And he is famous for his humorous touch in his writing, and so you expect that this text is very challenging. The vocab words are very advanced, sophisticated, and with that background, my tip for you is, do not expect yourself to understand everything here. If you have such an expectation, you will only end up disappointing yourself. Now, this is the very first tip that I'm going to give you. Do not expect yourself to understand everything. Otherwise, you will only disappoint yourself. So what should we do? Now, bear in mind always that our job is not to understand every single word here, but our job is to answer the questions on the QA book, the question answer book. So we go through the questions, we know what we are asked, and we give them the answers. That's another tip. Now, of course, without understanding every single word here, we need a lot of guessing words. So what I mean is, well, we have to try very hard to make a clever guess when we come across things that we don't 100% understand. So again, readjust your expectation, and make sure that we answer the questions. And number 3, make a clever, good guess, quality guess. Alright, so with these tips, we'll dive into the text. And well, by the way, who is Stephen Fry? As I said, he's a very, very famous writer. Here is Stephen Fry. He's a 62-year-old gentleman now, a very famous actor, comedian and writer, and he's still very active in his Twitter. And if you want to know more, you can always go to the internet, and you will always come across his shows or his books. Now, this is its celebrity. But this Stephen Fry is pretty young compared to the picture that we just saw, because it's about, how he started his career. So anyway, enough for the background. We'll go to the QA book and answer the questions. Let's not forget about it. It's nothing like a literary appreciation or analysis here. We just want to get the questions answered. First of all, how was the writer feeling when he started his walk in paragraph 1? We'll do a little reading here. The morning after the Cellar tapes was aired on BBC Two. BBC, a radio program, so probably this is the name of the radio program. Alright? I went for a walk along the King's Road. I, meaning Stephen Fry himself, because this is taken from the autobiography. So this is the very first thing you need to know, autobiography, to write about one's story. Alright, how ought I to treat those who approached me? He asked himself. I switched on a sweet, gentle smile and practiced a kind of who, me gesture that involved looking behind me and then pointing with questioning disbelief at my own undeserving chest. I make sure, therefore, before setting out that there were pens in my pocket for autographs. Here is another key word that may bring you to the answer to 60. So after the show, he took a walk on the King's Road. He was expecting people to greet him, so he was switching on his sweet, gentle smile, and he practiced that kind of conversation, who, me gesture, and then he also got his pens ready in his pocket for autographs. And so we can imagine how excited he was. Excited because he was expecting that there were people coming towards him asking for his autograph, because he just finished his first radio show. So the answer A, excited, not relieved, nothing to be ashamed of, and he was clearly not confused because he knew what to do. He knew that he had to get these ready. Alright, so well, already quite challenging first paragraph. Number 61. Well, do expect that this video clip will be a bit longer because the questions here may require more explanation. 61. I'm ready with my cup of water too. 61. Why did the writer think that he would be approached by people? Well, as we already saw in the first paragraph, mainly because he just finished his first radio program on BBC Two, and so he was expecting, he was already getting some fans. Yeah. Number 61. So why? Well, because he just appeared on a television show. Alright, I'm sorry, I must correct myself. BBC Two is not a radio show. As you see on the note here, it's more a television show rather than a radio show. I should correct myself. And so back here, 61. Why? Then because he just appeared in the show and he was expecting that he was getting famous as an actor. He was becoming a celebrity, and that's why he would be approached by fans, people, anybody on the street. 61. 62. What three things did the writer do to prepare for his walk that were probably not normal for him? Well, if we look back at the first paragraph again, we see these things, unusual things that he did. First, he tried to switch on his smile, sweet, gentle smile, and then he practiced also that kind of conversation line, who, me gesture. What is that who, me thing? Now I'd like to show you this picture, this kind of meme. Who, me? Who, me? Are you talking to me? Really? So look at that, you know the feeling. Sometimes you rehearse these lines. Who, me? Are you talking to me? No, things like that. Really? Alright. Name two pronouns. Who, me? So Stephen Fry was exactly rehearsing himself. That kind of who, me gesture. So that's number 2. Number 3, he made sure that there were pens in his pocket. So that's what we saw there, that there were pens in his pocket. So 3 things that he was doing to prepare just in case someone walked up and talked to him and asked for his autograph, his signature, autograph signature. That's 62. Done. 63. Well, once again, don't expect to understand every single word or an explanation of every single detail, we will only disappoint ourselves. Well, you can do it later, but our main task, answer the questions. 63. Why did the writer say in P2 that the couple he walked past were possibly foreigners? Well, where are the couples? Let's see, we need to locate them before we answer the question. There were an elderly couple. So let's read from the beginning. The first people I passed as I made my way up to a certain place were an elderly couple who paid me no attention. Now I want you to know that what's special about this couple first is that they were an elderly couple, old. Secondly, they paid him no attention. In other words, while he was expecting that somebody would approach him and ask for his autograph, this old couple came up without paying him any attention. And that brings us to the next line. Foreigners, possibly. And he was thinking, they may be foreigners. They may not have seen my show here, and so they may not know me, and that's why they were paying me no attention. So if you know the thinking, the inner monologue of Stephen Fry, you will naturally know what this all means. 63 there. D. The couple didn't recognize the writer, and therefore Stephen Fry thought that this couple might have come from another country, might be foreigners, a pair of foreigners, a couple from overseas, because this couple didn't recognize the writer. They gave him no attention. 63 D. 64, you see, is a very difficult one. Only 24% of the candidates got it right in that year. Why did the writer hang around the television listings magazines? Why did the writer hang around there? What do you mean by the television listing magazines? Well, we'll see. We'll start from here this time. I went into a newsagent and hung around the piles of television listing magazines. Alright, so you'll find these words from question 64. To pick up a Radio Times, people had to ask me to step aside, and obviously and by definition, these persons, these people, must have been television watchers. But my features, by now set into a wild, despairing grin, meant nothing to them. And this was very strange. This was very strange. Again, nobody was paying him any attention, even though he was standing at the newsagent around a pile of television listing magazines who were visited by people who were supposed to be television watchers. You find that? I mean, can you follow that logic? So why did the writer hang around the magazines? Well, most likely because he wanted to be greeted or to be recognized by the passers-by there, the people who wanted to buy those magazines. So a model answer, we'll look at the official wording. Because he thought that the people there who watched TV would recognize him and ask for his autographs or ask him to sign the autographs. That's why he stood right there to be recognized, expecting people to know him, to come and greet him, to approach him, to ask him for his autographs. But of course we know that at the end he was disappointed. Nobody was paying him any attention. So that was what he was thinking. He wanted to be recognized by people. That's why he stood right there. He hung around there among the magazines. Everybody alright so far? Yeah? I hope you're feeling more secure now with my, voice-over tutorial guidance, and you feel more confident in understanding things. 65. What assumption about TV did the writer have which turned out to be not true? Well, as I said, he was disappointed at last when he said this was most very strange because people didn't recognize him. I seemed to mean nothing to them, and that was very strange. So what assumption turned out to be not true? How come he was disappointed? Well, because answer here, because television usually means instant fame, and television should make you famous. But he was disappointed because that seemed to be not true. He was not famous, and he was not recognized by anybody, even though he was on the show. So what assumption? So the answer here should be the assumption that turned out to be not true. The assumption is TV makes you famous. TV should make you famous, which the whole thing turned out to be not true. Now, actually, the exact wordings come from here. Television, everybody in the world knew that it conferred, it meant, it brought instant fame, but it is not true. He was disappointed. Assumption, because everybody in the world knew. We all thought that TV brings you fame, instant fame, but it was not true. So that's the assumption. Line 14. So far so good. We have spent more than 10 minutes here, and I hope you are feeling stronger. 66. Why did the writer say at last? So you have to talk about the real meaning, the hidden meaning of this expression at last. Line 19, right here. Now we have to read the backstory first before we come to our conclusion. So what's happening is this. What's happening is paragraph 3. I pulled out a magazine, whatever. As I said, you skip the other less important words, you make a clever guess, you just get the important meaning. I pulled out a magazine from the shelf, and as I was trailing disappointedly back, because as I said, he was disappointed because nobody recognized him, nobody paid him any attention. So he walked back to the flat. And then he heard a voice behind him. Excuse me, somebody shouted to him, and he said, I turned to see an excited young girl at last. Yes? So try to dramatize this, visualize this. When he was totally disappointed and he walked back to his flat, and suddenly somebody called out at him, hello, excuse me. And he turned around, and you can imagine how excited he was. He was excited. No, I mean, not just the young girl was excited, but he was equally excited. And he thought to himself, finally, somebody recognized me. Full of expectation, full of anticipation. Finally, he could give away his autograph. But we know the end is that he was disappointed again, because the girl wasn't asking for his autograph. The girl was just saying that, hello, excuse me, gentlemen, you forgot your change. You forgot to take back your money. So, while he was expecting somebody to ask him for an autograph, he was disappointed again. So why 66? Why did the writer say at last? Because he had been waiting for too long, so long, for somebody to call out at him, treat him like a superstar. That's why at last. So first of all, the word at last means finally. Yeah, because he was desperate that someone would recognize me, and finally he was expecting finally that his hope would be fulfilled, his hope of being recognized, his hope of giving away autographs, being a superstar, being a celebrity would be fulfilled. But he was disappointed again. That's why at last, because he had been waiting for so long to be recognized by someone. So that's how you get 2 marks. The surface meaning is finally, and then what was he thinking? Deep down, that's his desire to be known as a celebrity. So that's why at last. 67. Who was the girl? Well, some guessing game. Is a young girl, and probably she came from the news agent. The news agent. What is a news agent? You may be still wondering. News agent. Places where you can buy magazines or newspapers, like what we see in Hong Kong. But the convenience stores do the job. But in the UK, they have news agents that sell, especially magazines and newspapers. So the young girl from the news agent. So that's it. The shop sales assistant, the news agent, someone who worked in the news agent, someone who worked in the shop, anything like that. That was the girl. Not a fan. 68. According to P4, what does the writer think is embarrassing? Paragraph 4. We'll do some background reading. Ever since I can remember, I had dreamt of being famous. I know how embarrassing an admission this is, and from the first moment I was aware of such a class of person existing, I had wanted to be a celebrity. He was very honest about his fantasy of dreaming of being famous, and he knew that it is embarrassing to say that, but this is really what he had been hoping for, that he always had wanted to be a celebrity. Why is that embarrassing? Why is that embarrassing? What does the writer think is embarrassing? I'm sorry, I should correct myself. Well, he found wanting to be famous to be embarrassing. So that is C, saying that out loud, that he wanted to be famous. That is embarrassing. Alright, it's nothing to do with other people, nothing to do with the whole Western world. But, well, D is not right, because he was not famous by then. He was in no way famous, but he wanted to be famous, and that made him embarrassing, saying that. 69. Class of people, well, obviously is the celebrity. Wanted to be one of those famous people, celebrity, that class. But you can't say that people wanting to be famous. It has to be the famous people themselves, not celebrity to be, but the celebrity, the real celebrity already. 70. According to the instruction here, we have to go to paragraph 4, and we have to fill in each blank with one word. Paragraph 4 right there. So when the writer was young, he desired something. So you have to change the word famous into fame. The thing itself. He desired fame, celebrity. We need a noun there. Like many young people today. And it is a common worry that society now places less importance on ability than on whatever it is. Now that brings us to this line. The supremacy of appearance over achievement. So people think that appearance is more important. Appearance weighs more than achievement. So here, achievement, ability, here is a similar word. So society now places less importance on ability than on appearance. In other words, people think that appearance is more important than achievement. So that's where the word comes from. While it may seem obvious that wanting to be a celebrity is superficial and delusional, is a kind of delusion, superficial. How do we know that this is the answer? Superficial? Do we find the word superficial? Well, actually, yes. The word shallow means superficial. Shallow means superficial. So we can say delusional here. Alright, and it can also be clearly seen that more and more youths, young people are by fame every year. That brings us to the next line. That is here. What about this? Clearly. It's very clear. It's also be clearly seen. Clearly. See just clearly that more and more people, greater and greater proportion of the Western world's young people, they are becoming entrammelled, trapped, dazzled by fame. They are so attracted by fame that they became dazzled. Alright, so we have a few words available here. Entrammel. We want to take a look at the meaning there. Entrammel. Now we don't have the word there. I'm afraid we have to go to entrammel. Entrammel. That is to trap, to entangle, trap. So that's a word. So that's why the word trap is also correct, acceptable here. Next question, 71. What is the phenomenon? Line 30. You may wonder how our culture can be so broken and so sick as to venerate. Well, this is a word, I'm afraid, that you have to know. That is to respect, to admire. So broken, so sick, to admire a pack of talentless nobodies who offer no moral, spiritual, intellectual substance and no discernible gifts beyond unthreateningly photogeneity. A lot of difficult words, but let's try to skip all of them because we want to pay attention to the phenomenon. My counter argument to this would be, firstly, the phenomenon pointing to the whole thing over here. My counter argument to this would be this phenomenon, the phenomenon that the whole thing, that what, that people, so many people, they admire, they respect a pack of talentless nobodies. So actually the word phenomenon is referring to the previous sentence, the situation, the phenomenon described in the first sentence. So basically you can just move the whole thing as to the answer sheet is the answer without understanding every single word, like sustenance, discernible, unthreatening photogeneity. Yeah. So if you have to make a good guess, that is how you do it. Point back. So the fact that people venerate a pack of talentless nobodies, you can even skip all the details. You don't have to copy everything. Or the culture of worshipping, admiring, respecting, loving celebrities who look good but don't have much talent, talentless. Alright, so 71.1, terribly low percentage because it's terribly difficult. But if you just try to make a good, smart guess, you may still have a chance of getting it right. This is for the 5 stars students, probably, or the very lucky people. Now, 71.2, in the writer's opinion, what's the worst alternative to this phenomenon? Then you have to read on. Blah 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 blah. So what can be worse than worshipping these talentless people? What's worse? We humans are naturally, can we start from here? We humans are naturally disposed to worship gods and heroes. Worship, venerate. So we see the echo between the first and the last sentence. We humans. So Stephen Fry seems to be defending, explaining our nature to worship gods and heroes and beautiful people, talented people. And he concluded, I would rather see that impulse directed into the adoration of daft singers rather than into the veneration again, of militant politicians. In other words, now this is bad. Stephen Fry doesn't really like it. I mean, this phenomenon. But at the same time, he understands that this is part of human nature. So this is very natural. And he concluded that, okay, it's fine to worship these talentless nobodies, even daft, silly singers that you sometimes see on YouTube or television. I would rather you fall in love with these silly singers than falling in love with those militant politicians, crazy, insane, monster-like politicians out there in his time and in our times. So you see, the comparison is drawn here with the word then. Rather this than that. Alright, so the answer? What is worse? What is a worse alternative to that phenomenon up there? Well, that is the veneration, the adoration, the worshipping of militant politicians. Alright, it's not easy. It's not easy, boys and girls. I told you at the very beginning that this passage is very, very, very hard, and I said 3 times. And so what we have to do is to make a good, clever, informed guess. 72. According to P6, social networking services teach us that. According to paragraph 6, not according to your knowledge. According to paragraph 6 right here. Paragraph 6. Secondly, is it not a rule in life that no one is quite as stupid as we would like them to be? Social networking here. Social networking services of the digital age teach us anything it is. If it teaches us anything, it is. Now keywords. It is that blah 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 blah. That only a fool would underestimate the intelligence, intuition and cognitive skills of the masses. So in other words, we should not underestimate the intelligence of the masses, of most people. So social networking services teach us that people are actually smarter than we think. Okay? Only a fool would underestimate their intelligence. In other words, we should not underestimate. In other words, actually the masses, the public, the majority can be smarter than we think. Alright? So that is 72. Boy. 73. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it up. If you feel exhausted, overwhelmed already, you can pause the video and go and wash your face and get some drink, and you can come back later on. But anyway, I'm going to continue. 73. What does line 45 refer to? 45. 1. Being one, being somebody. Who is that somebody? Now we have to start. The good thing, if you are following closely to what I'm doing here, I always start from the question and I always identify the keyword first, and then I try to go back to the beginning of that sentence or paragraph to see what has been happening. Thirdly, paragraph 7, we have to start from there. Look at the kind of people who most object to childishness and cheapness of celebrity culture. Does one really want to stand with? Do you really want to stand with such bores? Well, you don't need to know the word, but at least you know this word boring people. I should know. I often catch myself being one of those boring people. And it isn't pretty. Actually, it's not a good thing to do, Stephen Fry said. Alright, let's go. So, what does one refer to? One referring to that kind of people who are boring, bores, and that kind of people who object to the celebrity culture. Don't play smart, you people. Alright, because if you play smart, then you may end up being one of the boring people. So that's the struggle between pop culture and high culture. You may see it that way. Number 74, paragraph 7. What is the false dichotomy that the writer mentions? Dichotomy, well, it's a difficult word. I mean, quite advanced, but no harm if you know it before we continue. Dichotomy. D-I, that is two. Alright, that is two. Two. So dichotomy is difference between two things, two extremes, two opposites, two completely opposite ideas. Dichotomy between his public and private life. So here are two extremes. Dichotomy, that is the distance, difference between the two extremes. Alright, so we have to go back to that paragraph 7. What is the false dichotomy that the writer mentions? Dichotomy, well, shall we first locate the word? And we go back to the beginning of the sentence. I would defend the absolute value of Mozart over Miley Cyrus. I think you know Mozart. You must also know Miley Cyrus. And of course, I will. But we should be wary of false dichotomies. We should be very careful with this kind of, separating Mozart from Miley Cyrus, treating them as two totally different things. We have to be very careful, cautious with this kind of false dichotomy. Alright. So what is the false dichotomy? Dichotomy that the writer mentions, that is to have to choose between Mozart and Miley Cyrus. Or you can say dichotomy, the false dichotomy is that you have to either classical music or pop music, either Mozart or Miley Cyrus. You can't have both. That is the false dichotomy, treating the two as two extremes. So you have to be careful with this false dichotomy, the choice between Mozart and Miley Cyrus, representing classical music and pop music. 75. What does the writer compare diverse culture to? So if you go down, explaining the dichotomy, Mozart and Miley Cyrus, and Stephen Fry argues that actually you can have both. Why not both? It doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. What about both Mozart and Miley Cyrus? And then it continues by comparing this phenomenon with this, an Amazon rainforest. The Amazonian rainforest is like a jungle, as varied as. So why don't we have both Mozart and Miley Cyrus? Just like in a jungle, in a rainforest, we have everything from a bug to a snake to a monkey to whatever. That is why we have variety. It should be as varied as a rainforest. So that's why we have biodiversity. Everybody, can you follow the logic? Okay, so if I have to go back a bit for you, he has been talking about celebrity, fame, being famous, and he moved on to say that well, some people think that this is a very cheap culture, wanting to be famous, but he disagrees. Why not? Why should we be fascinated with high culture? What about the low culture, the pop culture? We can have both Mozart and Miley Cyrus, just like we can have the little bug and the monkey and the bird and the snake in one single jungle that give the jungle variety. So that brings us back to 75. What does he compare diverse culture to? A jungle or a rainforest or biodiversity? What metaphor does the writer use for comparing Mozart and Miley Cyrus? And if you go down, we find another pair of comparison, that is puma and caterpillar. Well, I was saying bug and monkey and bird and snake, but Stephen Fry was using the puma and the caterpillar as a kind of comparison. Caterpillar, you got that? Not that brand name. Puma, you got that? It's not that brand name. I have to show you the animal puma. Animal puma. This is a puma. Alright, this is a puma. And the caterpillar. This is a caterpillar. Alright. So you can have both Mozart and Miley Cyrus. You can have both puma and a caterpillar in one forest. Alright, that's 76. 77. Paragraph 8. Two differences the writer mentions between this generation and the previous ones. Paragraph 8. That brings us to paragraph 8. Against all that it might be said that the quarrel is not with harmless idolatry, forget about it. The problem, some would argue, is not that everyone worships celebrity, but they want it for themselves. Online user-generated content and the rise of the talent show and reality TV have bred a generation, finally we see this keyword, for whom it is not enough to flick through fan magazines. They want their own shot at stardom. So the question was asking, between this generation and the older generations, what are the two main differences? Now it says that the talent shows, the internet, the reality TV have led to our generation, the younger generation, the bred generation. What's so special about them? It is that they don't just worship celebrity, but they want it for themselves. In other words, they want their own shorter start. Well, they actually mean the same thing. This sentence and the other one, They don't just want to worship some heroes or celebrity. They want to be the hero or celebrity themselves. That is one difference. Alright, so that's point number one. They want fame for themselves. They want to be famous themselves, or they want their own sort of stardom. Where is the second point then? What is the second difference? Now we have to be patient. Move on to the last sentence. They want, moreover, big word. So apart from that difference, we see another one here. Moreover, they want to go straight. They want to go straight to fame and fortune, short-circuiting tedious considerations like hard work and talent. So instead of getting famous with hard work and talent, no, the younger generation say, no, we don't want to be famous with hard work and talent. We want to become famous without being hardworking, without being talented. We want to go straight to fame and fortune. Alright, I hope that makes it clearer now for you, boys and girls. And that brings us back to 77.2. They want to go straight to fame and fortune. They want to be famous without being hardworking, without being talented. Or to put it in another way, the previous generation was more hardworking or talented. You may disagree, but that's how Stephen Fry puts it. Alright. 78 vocab challenge. Which word means boring, frustrating? Well, if you have a good vocabulary, if you keep learning, enriching your own vocabulary, you should have no problem with this word. Tedious, meaning long and boring, repetitive, because hard work is often boring things. 79. We are almost to the end. 79. What does old Stephen suggest about writer's feelings? 61. Now that is 79 is a very, very tricky one, and it's the most difficult question of the whole paper, considering the low percentage of 2 and 8% of the candidates who got this right. So 79. Now see if you can follow this. Don't force yourself too hard, but to see if you can follow this. 79.1. What does that suggest about the writer's feelings? So you have to read between the line, but before that, before we can do it, we have to locate it here. Oh, Stephen. That's the focus. And it seems that we have to start from the beginning in order to know what's happening here. Oh, Stephen. What's the story here? Paragraph 9. Allow me to read it for you. Work was coming in thick and fast, but I was not famous. I was having a lot of opportunities, but I was not famous yet. But I had a few invitations to film premieres and first nights, and they began to trickle in, but I found that I could walk the red carpet entirely unmolested. Humorous touch here, forget about the difficult words, but what he was trying to say, to put it simply, is that he wasn't famous yet. He might have walked the red carpet, but he was still not famous yet. Alright, that's the basic meaning. I remember going to some event with Rowan Atkinson. I think you must have seen this face, this world famous Rowan Atkinson, one of my favorite actor there. Rowan Atkinson, you can already see his name. In his name on TV is often Mr. Bean. This is him, Rowan Atkinson. That's Mr. Bean. So back to the passage. So one time he went to some event with Mr. Bean, superstar, at the press night of a new play, I think. and to hear his name shouted out by photographers and seeing the crowd of fans pressing up against the crash barriers caused the most intense excitement in me. So if I have to rephrase this, he went to some event with Mr. Bean, and the photographers were there and the fans went crazy and everybody was excited, and Stephen Fry himself, he was excited too, alright, because he was with Mr. Bean in that event. So he felt the excitement, especially felt the excitement of being a superstar like Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson. However, note the next line. Combined with a sick flood of fury and resentment, at the same time he felt angry, jealous, because no one, not a single person, recognized me or wanted my picture. Alright, so that's the story from line 56 to 60. He was with Mr. Bean in an event. People got crazy because of Mr. Bean. He was excited too, Stephen Fry, but nobody recognized him, and so he was a bit jealous, angry, bitter, because you were not the superstar. You were just with the superstar. You were not in the limelight, so to speak. And then with that he said, "Oh, Stephen. Oh, Stephen." So what does "Oh, Stephen" suggest about the writer's feeling? Now my tip is you try to relate this "Oh, Stephen" with what is being mentioned in the previous sentence. As I said, he got angry, jealous, bitter, because he was he was filled with a sick flood of fury and resentment because nobody recognized him. I think there lies the answer. So, about his feelings. So these are feeling words. And he feels ashamed, embarrassed, foolish, jealous, disappointed, angry, upset, all sorts of negative feelings that you can relate to that scene. Yeah? Because he was walking up the red carpet with Rowan Atkinson, but he was not the superstar like Rowan Atkinson. Alright, so everyone okay? So that's why he, gave a sigh. Oh, Stephen. Stephen is not you, it's Mr. Bean. Stephen is not you. Oh, Stephen. So a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of disappointment, a little bit of anger, fury, upset. Right? That's why it can be quite hard to get 79.1 if you don't follow the picture here. Now, why does he feel like that? I think if you have been listening to my commentary, and if you have been paying attention, if you are not skipping the video, just jumping here and there, if you are giving me the patience, trying to figure out the whole bunch of information and difficult words, you know the answer already. You can be the 2%. Go back to the original official model answer and you'll find that you know it. Because Mr. Bean was so famous that Stephen Fry was overshadowed. Because he wanted to be the famous person. Because he felt neglected by the photographers and the fans. Because he doesn't want other people to know how desperate, how much he wanted to be famous. Because the whole thing shows how desperate he wanted to be famous. Alright? Because he was desperately wanting to be a celebrity like Rowan Atkinson. That's why he gave a sigh of disappointment or fury. Oh, Stephen. Alright, feel relieved that you get the answer. You're part of the 2%. I hope not this time maybe, but next time you will do better. Question 80. I think I'm spending almost an hour here. We're coming to an end pretty soon. We're coming to the end of the passage. Question 80. Which sentence is the writer referring to when he says that sentence? Line 61, 62. Shall we highlight that line first? Sentence. Sentence. Sentence consisting of words. That kind of sentence. Oh, Stephen. And then I have clicked on and selected that sentence. Deleted it, but restored it again. And then deleted it again. And then restored it again. And so you can feel the struggle of Stephen Fry while he was putting down that sentence. You can feel that he was hesitating whether he should keep the sentence or delete the sentence, or if he has deleted it, should he restore the sentence. Of course, the sentence should be the one that goes before this. So would it be this or would it be that? Which sentence? Now we have to go a little bit further to understand what is happening here. So he continued. After that, he said, a large part of me would rather not have you know that I'm so futile, fatuous, and feeble-minded. It's alright if you don't understand all these words. You can go to any good dictionary to check them out later. But the general meaning, the overall meaning, a large part of me would rather not have you, the readers, know that I'm so negative, angry, maybe disappointed, desperate. But an even larger part recognizes that this is our bargain. Yeah? Alright. So probably when he said that sentence, he is actually referring to the whole story here, the whole past of going out with Mr. B. Yeah? And especially that speed, to hear his name shouted out by photographers, blah 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 blah. So a large part of me would not have you know that I was so desperate at that moment, but an even larger part recognizes that this is our bargain. I have to tell you that because this is our bargain. I have to tell you that experience. Yeah. Alright. So, quite a difficult MC question. I think a very popular wrong answer would be "Oh Stephen," but it doesn't explain anything. "Oh Stephen," it's so empty that it doesn't say anything. So it's not referring to C. It's actually referring to B. That experience. 81, 82, you see another 1%, another 4%, very, very hard. What is entrails a metaphor for? A lot of guessing work here. The word entrails here. Okay, I'm a bit exhausted having talked for an hour, but if you're still with me, I would say that it's all worth it. I cannot speak, line 64, I cannot speak for others or presume to drag out their entrails for public inspection, but I can speak for myself. I understand that it's a difficult word, and without knowing it, it's hard to guess the meaning. So you may want to give it up, but we'll still try to drag it out. Drag out there for public inspection, for public examination. So it's something that come from you. So what is that? Well, originally the word entrails, sorry, is always in the plural form with the s, entrails, entrails. So that's the inside parts of a person body, especially the intestines. Alright, so the inside part, the inner part, or in this case the inner feeling. I cannot speak for others because I cannot drag out their inner feelings for you to see, but I can speak for myself. That is what he is saying. So inner feelings, inner thoughts, personal private thoughts, or even secrets. Alright, I know it's hard, that's why only 1% got it right, but if you're one of those 1%, I feel proud of you. Good work, good guess, good vocabulary. Who is the writer referring to when he says you? Alright, 65, line 65. It is right there, the you. Maybe to put a kind of construction to it, I was living proof that you could want to be famous and want to do the work. You could relish the red carpet and relish working into the early hours, cranking out articles, blah 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 blah. You. If you look at the answer key, the common mistake is the readers or the reader, or those people who want to be famous, but that is not the answer. He is actually speaking to people in general, everyone in the world, because we know that celebrity, the theme of this article, fame, is a temptation not only to the readers, but it's a universal temptation. It's a universal desire to be famous. Alright, so it's basically everyone. So he is saying, I was living proof that everyone could want to be famous and want to do the work. Alright, so another very tricky question there. Alright, the last MC question, 83. Below are some quotes on fame. Which one most closely matches Stephen Fry's opinion? An interest in fame is natural and not unhealthy. I think this is quite obvious as an answer, because we just now saw that it was a very natural thing. Didn't we see that? Yeah, and you don't have to be ashamed of it. I guess. Where is that? You should help me there. Yeah, we are naturally wanting to worship gods and heroes, and we are naturally wanting to be famous ourselves, and it's not unhealthy. You know, some people may think that you are silly, but you know, we are smarter than you think right there. Alright, and he continued to argue that it's a wrong, false dichotomies. We can have both. We can worship people and we can still be smart. We can try, we want to be famous, and it's all fine. Alright, so that's A. Last one. Match the main ideas with the paragraph. Paragraph 1 to 3. Alright, if you remember, it's a story from the writer's life to introduce the topic. That's 1 to 3. Paragraph 4, right there. Still have any impression? Number 4 should be F. That's the writer's desire to be a celebrity. When he was younger, he always had wanted to be famous, although he feels a bit embarrassing. So that's F. His desire to be a celebrity, even though there were negative views. And paragraph 5, So you know, people want to adore these talentless, but he said, well, it's better this than that. So that's paragraph 5. 5D, worshipping celebrities is not unique in our present day society. We always have wanted to do that. The phenomenon is for all time and it's natural. So that's 5D. 6, paragraph 6 over here. And if you remember, you know, something about intelligence, cognitive skills, intuition. So that's paragraph 6E. A love of celebrities does not automatically make you unintelligent. You can love celebrities and at the same time you can be smart. So that's the main argument. 6E. 7, the dichotomy between Mozart and Miley Cyrus, the forest, having the puma and caterpillar in one jungle with a lot of variety. That's the main idea. 7A, choice, variety, differences. They are all important in a healthy, diverse society like a rainforest. So that's 7A. 8, go back here. But the new young generation may think a little bit differently from the past generations. There are two main differences. They want themselves to be famous and they want to do it quick and simple without hard work. So that's paragraph 8. 8G. People nowadays decide to be worshipped. Okay, they don't just want celebrities, they want to be the celebrities themselves. And finally, number 9, another story from himself with Rowan Atkinson especially. So that's 9B, an example of his own obsession with celebrity, quite like C, but C is an introduction while B is a conclusion, is a summary of his view. Alright, congratulations boys and girls. If you hang in there until this very second, this final moment, congratulations. I feel so proud of you that you have the patience and you have the determination to sort things out, and I really appreciate that. And I think I deserve some compliments too, so say the same thing to me. Alright, but anyway, that's the end of the passage by Stephen Fry on celebrity. A fascinating article, a very challenging, sophisticated one, but good for you boys and girls, because you have had the start of understanding this passage. So very good for you boys and girls. Now the total for part B2 is 41 marks. Would you please add up your scores and put it on the top right hand corner? Your teachers may ask for your total scores for this 2014 reading part A and part B2. So all the best to your preparation for the coming DSE, and I hope you have been spending your time during this suspension period meaningfully. And take care everyone, and I'll get this clip on YouTube. Feel free to revisit it. I know this is a super long video, but the point is, if you want a particular explanation for a particular question, you always find the resource in this clip. So so see you next time. I hope you benefit from my effort here, and I hope you also enjoy the background music. So take care everyone, see you.